I don't really know much about their relationship. I think, they're definitely friends and they seem, great.
And I just want Rob to do what's best for him and what makes him happy. And if that makes him happy, then we will all support him.
I don't really care who Rob dates, but having Chyna over at my house without my knowledge is disrespectful.
Kris Jenner has reportedly erupted after Blac Chyna's latest Instagram move tagged Rob Kardashian. And this isn't just family gossip. It's a potential content crisis for the Kardashian machine. Cameras don't just catch drama, they manufacture it. And when the alleged rekindling of a fraught ex's romance hits the public timeline, the woman who runs the brand is suddenly litigating optics instead of family feelings. Buckle up. This one smells like PR panic, boardroom calls, and 1,000 meme edits coming at us at breakneck speed. Blac Chyna posted a carousel on Instagram that included a caption tagging Rob Kardashian with a line that read, "This love is forever," and fans immediately spiraled into reunion speculation. That caption and the tagging are at the center of the rumor storm. Some outlets noted that Rob even liked the post, a small but symbolic gesture given how private Rob has been. And it was exactly the kind of micro-interaction that sends fandoms into detective mode. Whether the like was his or a social manager move, the optics were combustible. News reported that the reaction was immediate and intense, with reconciliation rumors trending across platforms and fandoms parsing every pixel for meaning. The online reaction crystallized this as a story the family could not ignore. Now zoom out. Rob and Blac Chyna's history is not a lightweight tabloid subplot. They dated, got engaged, had a daughter, and then their breakup was mimetic, messy, public, and legally fraught at times. Those scars don't vanish with a heart emoji. Some of the tensions included highly public legal battles that left long memories in the court of public opinion. For Kris Jenner, who oversees the narrative apparatus of the clan, a Blac Chyna-Rob reconciliation is a problem on multiple levels. First, there's optics. Chyna's past feuds with members of the family have been bitter and very public, and the brand's image managers don't want resurfacing headlines about revenge porn lawsuits and acrimony to leak back into the family's flagship product. Second, there's control. The Kardashian brand thrives on predictable chaos that can be monetized. An uncontrolled reunion introduces noise that isn't easily scheduled into a ratings narrative. Kris's reported eruption, a phrase used by several outlets to describe her reaction, reads less like a maternal meltdown and more like a crisis manager seeing a balance sheet threaten to wobble. When you run a multi-hundred-million-dollar entertainment and licensing empire, personal moments are business risks. Panic is part protect the brand instinct, part theatrical parental outrage staged for effect. Let's be clear, the family has a history of turning mess into narrative currency. From filmed breakups to staged reconciliations, the Kardashians have an editorial playbook that converts trauma into airtime. But not every messy beat is equally useful. Some are toxic to sponsors or too legally sticky to air. A reunion with Chyna carries legal history that could make certain partners uneasy, which explains Kris's alarm. We should parse motivations for all parties. For Rob, a public gesture toward Chyna can humanize him after years out of the limelight, aligning with his announced comeback to the family's show trailer and the possibility of more screen time. For Chyna, including Rob in a caption reclaims narrative control and drives visibility for her brand, especially if she has product or projects to promote. Both stand to gain attention. Both risk brand blowback. Now, what does erupt actually look like behind closed doors? Predictably, producers pick up phones, lawyers whisper, PR teams convene. Kris's agents likely began triage conversations with network execs. Contain, craft a statement, or stage a counter-narrative. The family is famously fast at choreography. The question is whether this instance is choreographable without collateral damage. There's a staging risk here. If the family attempts to neutralize the narrative by scripting a reveal or special around Rob's return, they risk reopening raw wounds for public consumption. And that would be a gambit Kris might want to avoid. Remember, Chyna's history with the family includes litigation and antagonism, which can reignite upset in an audience and among potential advertisers. Let's think about sponsors for a moment. Brands that bankroll programming are sensitive to reputational flashpoints. If Chyna's resurfacing reintroduces old legal baggage into headlines, advertisers could raise concerns about brand safety. And when corporate clients get nervous, executives like Kris pivot fast, either by smoothing the optics or by creating distance between the brand and the controversy. That corporate reflex is what often looks like erupting in the press. Social media will do the rest. Fans will weaponize the post into shipper content, critics will weaponize it into social commentary. Meme makers will take the most performative clip and loop it until it becomes the cultural shorthand for the moment. The narrative will be spun in minutes. The damage control will take days or longer depending on how deep the family wants to dig. Let's not ignore the human side. Rob and Chyna share a child, dream, and any reconciliation talk must be contextualized by co-parenting logistics and emotional complexity. Fans sometimes forget the real person in the center of these storms, a child whose life is tangentially affected by headline cycles. Kris's reaction could be as much about shielding Dream from upheaval as it is about corporate optics. It's both mother and CEO thinking in the same breath. There is also the revenge arc risk. Tabloids and some pundits will inevitably frame this as Blac Chyna returning to stir the pot, or as Rob seeking sympathy. Those frames ignore nuance. Relationships are messy, and sometimes public gestures are attempts at repair rather than publicity stunts. But given the actors involved and the history, skepticism is a rational default. Another dimension is the show's creative calculus. If Rob returns to the series spotlight, which some reports suggest, producers must decide how to integrate Chyna's presence, if at all. Do they film a reconciliation narrative? Do they keep the cameras off and focus on private healing? The choice will have financial and reputational consequences. Kris's instincts likely tilt toward containment. Her brand's playbook runs on control and predictability. Schedule the drama, monetize the fallout, and then patch the optics. An unsanctioned reunion undermines that model, and that loss of control is what fuels the narrative of erupting in press accounts. Think about narrative supply chains. Reality TV depends on consumable arcs. If production can package Rob's return into a neat storyline that satisfies advertisers and viewers, the family wins. If the reunion with Chyna produces messy headlines about legal history, then the family loses bargaining power. Kris's fury may be a defensive reaction to potential story rot, where brandable drama becomes toxic scandal. There's also the performative irony. The Kardashian ecosystem profits from intimate exposure, but is highly selective about which exposures are acceptable. The machine monetizes certain traumas while relegating others to protected status. Chyna's history, for instance, contains commercially risky elements. Resurfacing those threads is a PR threat Kris won't ignore. That's less about morality and more about risk management. Let's give Chyna credit where it's due. She is a media-savvy figure who knows how to create a moment. Tagging Rob in a language of permanence, "This love is forever," is the kind of move that guarantees engagement. Whether it's genuine or strategic, it achieves visibility. And in the algorithmic era, visibility equals bargaining power, especially for someone seeking to reassert cultural relevance. Rob's relative silence online makes him all the more telling. When quiet people act in public, the gestures are amplified. Fans treat such moves as breadcrumbs. In a family where everything is read through the lens of narrative opportunity, even a small social media reaction becomes a signal that can't be ignored. Kris sees that signal and, as manager-in-chief, she reacts. Now let's unpack possible motives for Kris beyond brand concerns. There's legacy management. Kris wants to preserve the family's curated legacy for streaming deals and long-term licensing. She also has to balance sibling politics. How will Kim, Chloe, or Courtney interpret and respond to a resurfacing of a previously explosive relationship? Family harmony matters less than the family's marketability, but both are entwined. If Kris truly erupted, the language in press reports might be inflated because drama sells. In celebrity ecosystems, emotional intensity often becomes a marketing asset. Media outlets will amplify a dramatic reaction because it creates narrative stakes. That doesn't mean Kris isn't upset. It means the outlet inevitably tunes up the volume to feed readers' appetite. There is an equality problem in how the story will be covered. Blac Chyna has long been treated as an outsider, a foil to the family's brand. The headline, "Chyna tags Rob," will be read differently by audiences who interpret her as an interloper rather than a co-parent. That framing sustains unfair narratives and reinforces insider-outsider dynamics that the Kardashian brand benefits from. Kris's defensive posture can be read through that lens as well. What could Kris do? First, she could publicly distance the show from any content involving Chyna, issue a measured statement about prioritizing Dream's privacy, and quietly negotiate with producers to keep the cameras off certain interactions. Second, she could lean into controlled storytelling by choosing when and how to present Rob's life. Both strategies aim to convert an uncontrolled rumor into a manageable asset. There's also the possibility of escalation. Another family member could post a counter-narrative, old footage could be dredged up, or legal teams could issue statements if past settlements are cited in new commentary. Each of these moves prolongs the story and increases the chance that sponsors get nervous. Kris's role would be to prevent that spiral or direct it in a profitable direction. Now consider the audience dynamic. Some viewers will root for reconciliation, humanizing the drama. Others will relish the spectacle and weaponize it into cultural commentary about fame, power, and exploitation. Fandom's polarity is a feature, not a bug. It guarantees engagement and, therefore, revenue. The family can either channel that energy or risk being caricatured by it. Let's be honest, the family has an interest in narrative closure that benefits them. Reconciliation, if it happens on their terms, could be repackaged as redemption content. Think tearful confessions, reconciliation scenes, and product tie-ins. Kris knows that and will likely prefer that outcome over unscripted chaos that hurts brand relationships. Yet there's a moral snag. Repackaging reconciliation risks commodifying real healing. Turning relationship repair into a content cliff can force participants into performative moments that are emotionally taxing and ethically fraught. Kris must weigh short-term gains against long-term reputational costs, especially if viewers begin to push back against exploitative storytelling. That pushback is already a cultural current. Audiences are increasingly critical of reality formats that exploit vulnerability. If this Chyna Rob thread is handled tone-deafly, the backlash could be sharp. Kris's calculus includes that risk, and her urgency makes sense in a landscape where viewer sentiment can swiftly influence platform decisions. Let's talk tactics. If Kris wants to neutralize the story, she might arrange a family statement emphasizing co-parenting and privacy, or she could orchestrate an alternate headline, a product drop, a philanthropic announcement, or a celebrity event to redirect attention. The family's track record shows they're adept at headline arbitrage. Create a bigger story to bury the smaller one. There is also the legal shadow to consider. Past legal fights, settlement terms, and reputation damage are messy baggage. Even if all legal entanglements are resolved, the mere reminder in headlines can revive old impressions. Brands hate unresolved narratives, and Kris's panic is as much about removing that reminder as it is about immediate gossip. And don't ignore timing. This dust-up coincides with Rob being visible in the show's trailer, which means production timelines and release windows are now variables in a PR equation. Timing matters in entertainment, and Kris's urgency can be read as calendar-driven damage control. Let's not reduce this to cynical calculation alone. Family dynamics matter. Kris is a mother, and she's seen family relationships fracture and heal in public for years. Her eruption could be born of protective instinct over grandchildren and children, a genuine desire to shield Dream from confusion. That human impulse coexists with her managerial instincts. She's both protective matriarch and executive producer. We should demand better storytelling from outlets and resist the spectacle industry today. What will the social feeds look like? Expect a torrent, reaction videos, trust me tweets, and a new crop of memes. People will splice moments from old episodes to craft a "this proves it" montage. Influencers will monetize takes, podcasters will book talking heads. The story will ricochet across platforms with a velocity that makes damage control difficult. Kris's reported reaction is proportional to that dynamic. The faster a story spreads, the quicker she must act. Let's imagine outcomes. Scenario 1. The rumor fizzles when either party clarifies privately, the family communicates a united co-parenting front, and the episode is a blip. Scenario 2. The family orchestrates a controlled narrative that reframes the reunion as a healing arc under their editorial control. Scenario 3. The rumor escalates, sponsors waver, and the family is forced into a prolonged PR theater that could dent long-term brand value. Which is likeliest? My money is on a controlled narrative. They have too much to lose to let chaos run unchecked. For fans who want an emotional reading, reconciliation might genuinely represent growth, forgiveness, and a desire to prioritize a child's happiness. For cynics, it's an opportunistic re-entry into relevance for both parties. Both readings can coexist. Humans are messy and markets are transactional. The headline doesn't force us into picking one moral posture. Kris's role in the eventual outcome will be decisive. She can either corral the story into a palatable narrative or let it spiral into an expensive mess. Her eruption could be an accelerant or a signal to producers that the family wants to own the arc. Either way, watch the PR moves. Statements, selective photos, and controlled appearances will be the breadcrumbs that tell us which route they chose. Another dimension is sibling politics. How will Kim, Khloe, Kourtney, and others react? Publicly, they'll likely offer standard support for Rob and emphasize family privacy. Privately, there could be debate about airing past grievances. Those internal pressures shape what story is deemed acceptable for public consumption, and Kris's voice usually carries the most weight in those rooms. We should also think about public sympathy. Some viewers will sympathize with a hopeful second chance. Others will view it as a publicity stunt. The polarization translates into metrics, streams, clicks, and social engagement that power negotiations. Kris understands those metrics intimately, which explains why reports of her anger have both personal and professional edges. Let's zoom out to cultural stakes. Why do we care? Because this is emblematic of a larger trend. Relationships in the celebrity age are performative by default. The public becomes entangled in private lives in ways that incentivize theatricality. That theatricality erodes the privacy that fosters normal interpersonal repair. Kris's panic over a resurfacing romance is a symptom of an industry that monetizes intimacy and punishes quiet resolution. To be fair, the family has produced content that many find deeply resonant, stories of personal growth, motherhood, and entrepreneurship. But there's a dark twin, the relentless extraction of emotional labor for profit. Reunions can be redemptive or exploitative, and the line between the two is often determined by who's controlling the narrative and to what end. If Kris chooses to weaponize the narrative to protect the brand, that decision will be read as a shrewd managerial move by some and as callous by others. That duality is at the heart of modern celebrity management. The same act can be framed as stewardship or exploitation depending on the storyteller. So what's the knockout prediction? My hot take. We'll see an immediate containment play, a family statement emphasizing privacy and co-parenting, followed by selective, positively framed content about Dream to reset the emotional tenor. Then, in a few weeks, expect evergreen content that reframes Rob's return as a personal comeback story with carefully curated beats that avoid legal flashpoints. Kris will get what she wants: control of the message without public liability. A contrarian read, Kris's eruption could be performative window dressing, a public display of anger designed to make the family look like it's protecting its own. While behind the scenes, the inevitable monetization plan is already in motion. The family is skilled at producing moral postures while orchestrating financial outcomes. If that's true, the outrage is part of the choreography, not a break from it. Finally, let's talk responsibility. As viewers, we have choices. We can click, amplify, and reward spectacle, or we can demand reporting that centers children's welfare and resists the urge to turn reconciliation into content. The family's power is proportional to our attention, and Kris's panic only matters because attention fuels capital. If we change our behavior, incentives shift. All right, drop your hottest takes in the comments. Is Kris justified in freaking out? Are Rob and Chyna in this for genuine reconciliation? Or is the family already packaging a comeback special? Hit like if you love a messy reality TV moment, subscribe for more unfiltered culture commentary, and ring that bell so you don't miss when this next episode of Real Life drops. I want your theories. Who benefits? Who loses? And what would you do if you were the one running the PR war? See you in the comments.